my dear readers, listeners, and of course, friends. In episode 444 of Jordan Peterson's podcast with Russell Brand, I am not sure what the fuck is going on. The usually verbose and grandiloquent Peterson has truly outdone himself this time, engaging in a nearly 2-hour mutual masturbation session with the disgraced guru Russell Brand. I must admit, dear reader, that I struggled to maintain consciousness while subjecting myself to this morass of pseudo-profundity and mythological wank, but I persevered so that you wouldn't have to. Where to begin with this odious display? Perhaps with Peterson's characteristically unhinged assertion that pride parades represent the inevitable descent into hedonistic narcissism and worship of instinctual desires, the moment prophetic authority disappears. This is nothing more than a bigoted, demonizing oversimplification of LGBTQ expression designed to prop up oppressive religious strictures. The insinuation that queer people are inherently depraved and hypersexual is as offensive as it is factually asinine. Or maybe we should start with the nauseating spectacle of Russell Brand, a man credibly accused of serial sexual harassment and misconduct, holding forth completely unchallenged on masculinity, civility, and the spiritual dimensions of his puerile Lothario past. The sheer gall of presenting himself as some sort of reformed guru figure, leveraging his history of predation and substance abuse for unearned credibility on topics he is manifestly unqualified to pontificate on, is staggering. But Peterson, the supposed stalwart against postmodern neo-Marxist amorality, nods along gamely, providing a fawning platform to a disgraced misogynist in a craven alliance of reactionary frauds. The injections of maudlin spiritual anecdotes, from Brand exploiting his child's medical crisis to spin a self-aggrandizing yarn, to the dual romanticization of early Christianity and archaic Jungian notions of archetypes and self-sacrifice, laid bare the intellectual vacuity of this whole enterprise. Peterson's Manichaean mysticism, positing a fundamental landscape of good and evil and tyranny and slavery, is childish, anti-rational fantasy thinking unmoored from reality. The perfect breeding ground for Peterson to demonize feminists, trans activists, and postmodern neo-Marxists as representatives of primordial feminine chaos. But of course, dear reader, what else would one expect when you put two pompous patriarchal frauds in a room together, fellating each other's messiah complexes for 2 hours? When you look past the fog of $5 words and neutered Joseph Campbell tropes, you see an unholy alliance dedicated to propping up oppressive power structures and traditional gender hierarchies at all costs, even if it means cozying up to an alleged serial abuser. This is the fundamental obscenity and hypocrisy of Peterson's crusade in a nutshell. It has nothing to do with resisting authoritarianism or standing up for laudable humanist values. It's a Trojan horse for brutish atavistic chauvinism dressed up in the shabby vestments of mysticism and mythology. A breathtakingly cynical marriage of convenience between a reactionary quack and an accused rapist, consecrated in the empty name of anti-wokeness. But wait, there's more. Just when you think this carnival of faux profundity couldn't get any more absurd, Peterson and Brand start rhapsodizing about the birth of Brand's child as some grand glimpse into the divine feminine. Forgive me if I don't join in the rapture over the miracle of childbirth, an evolutionary process that results in unimaginable suffering for millions of women and children worldwide. But I suppose that's just my chaotic, postmodern, neo-Marxist materialism talking. And don't even get me started on the interminable minutes spent fellating C.S. Lewis and butchering comparative religion to present Christianity as the ultimate font of meaning in a secular age. As if we haven't heard that hackneyed, nostalgic pablum 1,000 times before from every third-rate apologist grasping for spiritual legitimacy in the face of atheism's advance. The central message of this podcast, inasmuch as one can be divined from the self-important word salad, seems to be a retreat into a vague, bastardized form of Jungian spirituality as an antidote to the scary world of women's rights, LGBTQ visibility, and smartphone apps. A call for men to get in touch with the divine masculine by play-acting archaic hero myths and surrendering to the necessary tragedy of male self-sacrifice, all while ignoring the actual sacrifices and struggles of marginalized people fighting for justice and equality in the here and now. It would be laughable if it weren't so insidious. A gaudy, outmoded patriarchal fantasy sold as self-help to disaffected young men looking for a sense of purpose. And all the Jungian archetypes and biblical exegesis in the world can't obscure the fact that it's a philosophy of abasement before power, of prostration to the status quo dressed up as heroic individuation. If Peterson and Brand are so concerned about moral relativism and the decline of traditional values, they may want to start by not providing cover to alleged rapists and abusers in the name of fighting the postmodern dragon. And if they're going to persist in cosplaying as intellectual titans drawing on the deep wells of mythology and religion, the least they could do is read more than the Wikipedia summaries and Joseph Campbell Cliff's notes. But I suspect that level of rigor and consistency is too much to ask from these two jugheads. After all, there's a lot of money to be made and status to be gained by telling disaffected men what they want to hear. That the answers to their angst lie not in doing the hard work of building a more just world, but in pseudo-spiritual gobbledygook and reheated Jungian cliches about slaying the dragon of chaos. As far as I'm concerned, if this is the best the intellectual dark web has to offer, they can keep their colliginous Oedipal father worship circle jerk. The rest of us have actual work to do, dragging the world kicking and screaming into the 21st century. Peterson and Brand are welcome to keep bloviating into the void, but forgive me if I decline the invitation to join them in the abyss.